My name is Alicia Heyman. I'm the director for Friends of the Eel River. And also here from Friends of the Eel River is our program manager, Julie Weeder. Our team is so excited to launch this Eel River Native Plant Network. And after talking to many of you over the last year and a half as we put this idea together, I think that many folks here share that enthusiasm. We intend for this network to be a generational project, something that will serve the region for many, many years to come. So you all are here at the very start of something really exciting that will be around for a long time. A little bit of background on where this idea came from. Back in 2024, I was reflecting on the Klamath Dam removals and thinking about all the years of work that the Yurok tribe and their partners put into preparing for that massive restoration project following dam removal. As I understand it, they spent at least 5 years collecting and amplifying seeds to be used in revegetating the reservoir footprints. On the Eel River, PG&E has said that they hope to make this the fastest FERC dam removal ever. And they have an ambitious goal that dam removal might be able to begin as early as 2028. That timeline might be unrealistic at this point, but PG&E is working hard to make it happen. And we want to be prepared to make restoration of the project footprint the best it can be when that time comes, which is hopefully very soon. So I started reaching out to some of my colleagues in the restoration world to learn about the availability of native plant products within the eel watershed. And I was surprised, many of you probably would not be, but I was surprised to learn that folks often have a difficult time sourcing native plant products for their restoration projects, even much smaller restoration projects than revegetating the Potter Valley project footprint. So eventually, we decided to form a network that connects native plant experts of all kinds to explore how we can increase regional capacity to produce native plant products right here in this area. Friends of the Eel River is the what we refer to as the backbone organization of this network, but we are looking to all of you as the true experts to collaborate and decide on priority actions for the network to focus on as as time goes on. As part of developing this project, we first formed a stewardship team. Um, and I think we'll bring up a slide here so that you can see the lovely faces of our stewardship team. They're volunteers that represent different sectors of the native plant world, including tribes, commercial nurseries, restorationists, and native plant-focused nonprofits. They have already been hard at work guiding this process and will continue to ensure that we're on the right path as we move along. We've also held dozens of one-on-one meetings with many of you to help us identify needs and opportunities related to regional native plant production. Thank you all for giving your time to that process. And it's a really great start that we'll expand on today, and especially at our first in-person meeting in Fortuna on June 18th. And I think a little later on, we'll have an opportunity for you to go ahead and register for that meeting. One of our stewardship team members is John Bear. He's an ecologist with Applied River Sciences and a really key partner in this project. He has estimated the native plant materials that will be needed for revegetation once the dams are removed. And he will also conduct an evaluation of our current regional capacity to produce these materials. And he'll be sharing more about that later today. So for now, I'm going to turn it over to our incredibly capable team of facilitators. Heather and Sela from Co-Creative are going to take it from here.
Thank you, Alicia. Hi, I am Marisela or Sela Wexler, doing a little bit of tour guiding to kick things off of how we are going to use the 90 minutes with you today. We are going to have multiple opportunities to do one of my favorite things, and that is connecting with each other. We are going to review and gather feedback on the network's draft goal and initial scope or focus of the network. We really want to understand your hopes and needs from this work, so we will have time to talk about and share those. And we're going to preview what's coming up, including an in-person convening in June, as well as other engagements to come and our next steps from today's session. I'm going to pass over to Heather to keep setting us up.
Yeah, hey everybody, Heather Equinas here. So throughout this session, And anytime we're coming together as a network, we're going to work in lots of different configurations of groups so we can support you all to maximize your connections, build relationships, get to know one another, and personally and professionally. And we're going to start that right out of the gate. So if it's at all possible, we're going to head out into some small breakout groups in a sec. But if it's at all possible, and we totally recognize that it's not always possible based on where we live, but if you have enough bandwidth to have your camera on, we would love it because it can help us like associate names with faces and feel a little bit more connected. And we welcome whatever's happening in your background. All good. We're also going to use a piece of technology that's going to help us do some synthesizing together in addition to connecting in conversation. So this tool is called Meeting Pulse, and we're going to use it to concurrently sort of harvest your thinking and some info from you throughout the call today. We're going to use it right away. So Sela is going to share in the chat, maybe she has already. It fell behind my screen that I'm sharing,
Yep.
a link to Meeting Pulse. And so you can either sort of click on it there and work from it on your desktop, or if you're a person who might prefer to like use your phone to contribute to Meeting Pulse, you're welcome to say like scan the QR code with your phone, and you'll see a couple questions in there. We are curious if you'd be willing to share name and any affiliation you might have, and you'll see a question in there about a value. We're really interested in sort of connecting at a deeper level around values that shape our lives, shape our work. So if you'd be willing to submit, contribute, what's one value that consistently informs your life and work? We'll give you a second and we'll see what's coming in.
And we'll take a look at that together shortly. A few people have joined since I last shared the link. So if you are just now joining, I'll redrop the link for folks. If you follow that link, you'll see a few questions and we invite you to respond to those prompts. Right.
Oh, thanks, Ella. Yeah, so welcome. You can see some of the folks that are here. Thanks for joining. Great. All right. Thanks everyone for being here. This is a bit of a word cloud of some of our values that we prioritize in our lives and our work. Biodiversity, reciprocity. The bigger they are, the more times they've been offered into Meeting Pulse. Cool. Paying it forward. Beautiful. All right. Well, these are some of the core values that knit us together. So thank you so much for sharing. We are going to actually do a little bit more of that. And here it comes. We're going to invite you into some breakout rooms. One of the things that's often true about networks is one of the key things that make them valuable for people is the relationships that form and or get deepened with one another in the network. So we wanted to offer you space and time to connect right out of the gate. So you'll see the offer here. Marisela is going to set up breakout rooms. We're going to try to maximize making sure not everyone, people in the same organizations don't end up in the same rooms together. So you get to make connections across groups. But once you arrive there, we're going to invite you to share your name and org or affiliation. And if you're open to it, share a little bit more about why that value you shared matters to you or how it shows up in your lives. We invite you to please share the speaking time. We're going to be out there for about 8 minutes. How's it sounding? Any questions before we go? All right, cool. Stella, are we all good on the breakout room front?
Yeah, and I know folks might still be updating their organization, so I wasn't able to move people around based on that so much. So if you're with a familiar face, enjoy being with those folks for this breakout room. I'll open those rooms now. Welcome back, and I know we had a couple folks join even since folks were returning from breakout rooms. We now want to introduce to you all a draft goal statement, a goal purpose for this network, and also initial thinking about the focus and scope of this network. A few notes about the goal. It's meant to be ambitious enough to require collaboration, specific enough to guide action, and compelling enough to energize the work. Stewardship team member John Baer is going to share a draft goal with you. And we really want to hear your feedback about what's energizing for you, where you think the goal could be strengthened. Because this goal, we really want it to be a source of energy for everyone in the network. Please keep in mind that we're not looking to water the goal down. It can become really vague or general to where we can all technically agree to the goal, but it's softened so much that nobody's really actually that excited by the language or the idea that is there. So we do want to keep specificity and ambition alive. The goal is our starting place, and over the next several months, our intent is with you to develop more specific objectives that this network can collaborate to achieve. After John shares the goal, Alicia is going to share how we're currently thinking about the network scope, at least for the initial work that the network will be doing together. So in summary, John's going to share the draft goal, Alicia is going to share the draft network scope, and then we're going to invite your feedback on both of these. So as Alicia and John are sharing, please listen and maybe even jot some notes down if you can for feedback that you'd like to share on the goal and the scope. So I'm going to pass it to John to share our goal.
Hi, everybody. So this is our goal, and this was produced by the initial cut was produced by the stewardship crew. And this is to connect plant material producers and restoration practitioners to sustain and increase regional plant material diversity and production capacity for meeting Eel River watershed ecosystem restoration demand. And basically, the organizations we all might belong to probably largely fall into two categories of producers or restorationists, or those that support restoration. And really just focusing on what our demand might be and how our local production might be able to meet that demand or be expanded to meet that demand. So that's what I got.
Thanks,
Took me a
John.
minute to find my mute button there. So one of the ways that we think about the scope of this network is using terminology of focus and frame. And one way that is helpful for me to think about this is when you take a photograph, there's the thing that's in focus, like on my screen here, that would be my face. But in the frame is all the stuff behind me, the colors and all the other things that are, you're kind of thinking about. So Heather, I wonder if you want to advance that slide a little bit. geographic boundaries. This is the Eel River Native Plant Network. Many of you are from outside of those boundaries. So I always tell people it's the Eel River Native Plant Network with some kind of fuzzy boundaries because we want to be able to partner with folks that are outside of that basin. And of course, what's in frame then is that this project actually fits into objectives at the state and national level for, developing native plant strategies to amplify native plants that are used in restoration or for food sovereignty or, other purposes. Possible areas that we might work in, like projects that we might focus on include a pretty wide diversity of options at this point in the near term focus. We might be working on starting up small projects like increasing amplification facilities in the area. A lot of you have talked to me about the need for more seed cleaning and storage facilities. Some of that is easier said than done, but we can totally explore what that looks like. I know some of the nurseries are interested in better forecasting for native plant material needs. So those are some of the things that we're hoping to, by the end of this year, have identified what our priorities are to really focus on. But then, of course, there is, the bigger picture of preparing for this massive restoration project on the horizon. It's been, back of the envelope calculation says we might need as much as 250,000 pounds of seed to revegetate the Potter Valley Project reservoirs. So that's a really big, ambitious goal. Of course, that won't all be supplied from within this basin, but hopefully working with all the partners here today, we'll be able to accomplish that. And then of course there's like the larger frame too, as I said at the beginning, that this is a generational project. So this network is going to live well beyond the restoration of the Potter Valley Project footprint. And that gets to our time frame. In the next 5 years or so, we're going to be really focused on dam removal and the restoration that comes with that. But of course, the network will live on beyond that and serve to provide native plant materials for restoration projects well into the future.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So this is Heather again, and this is that moment in time where we would love to get your feedback, and we're going to do it in Meeting Pulse again, so we can concurrently share. A couple things I just wanted to note. What you just heard John and Alicia talk about was like first pass, high level picture of the intent of the network as we're currently conceiving of it. That's been generated through connecting with the stewardship team right out of the gate, and also all the one-on-one conversations that Alicia and Julie have been having with many of you. So we're just trying to surface like what's a compelling reason for this network to exist. So that's what the goal and the focus and frame is hopefully reflecting. But we know it could be better. We also know that in the coming months, our work is going to be identifying really specific objectives. We're not trying to do that now. We're just trying to get like a sense of the 30,000 foot level, how on track we are. So we're going to ask you, you'll see 3 prompts in Meeting Pulse. One is, what about this goal resonates with you or feels important? You'll also see a question, what, if anything, would need to change about the goal to make it more compelling, more energizing? And is there anything you'd want to add right out of the gate or change about what you saw in terms of the initial scoping dimensions? And have no fear, we're not going to do some like wordsmithing live here. We just want to like gather your thinking so we can come back to you all in June with some revisions. I'll share my screen, particularly of focus and frame, as you're providing your feedback, and I'll stop talking so you can have focused work time. So you can see there's a lot of resonance across many of the elements that are showing up in our goal. If it's okay, I would love to get some folks to share verbally on the next question. These seemed pretty clear. as do these, but I wanted to give people an opportunity to share verbally if you'd like. Oh, Stella, would you mind pulling up the what, if anything, would you change to make the goal more compelling?
Yes, it wasn't showing for me. I was having a glitch, so I'm just unsharing to reshare. But I'm glad it was showing for you.
And here I can also just read it out loud too. I was seeing one of the top voted one was like, let's make sure to forefront the restoration of tribal stewardship and sovereignty, and aimed on recreating indigenous agroforest landscapes, forefront indigenous food sovereignty and self-determination. Anybody willing to come off of mute and say a little bit more about that theme or that concept?
I can talk about it.
Thank you.
So I think in restoration conversations, there is that overarching question that is not often addressed of what are we restoring to? Understanding the Eel River watershed as a landscape that's been cared for since time began, that was really intentionally managed under tribal stewardship, in creating these landscapes that were intimately co-evolved with that management and with the peoples of that place that we are, and other tribal peoples of the watershed. So what are we restoring to? It is not a pristine wilderness that is untouched and outside of a management framework. To enact restoration, we also need to restore that care framework on the landscape generationally. And that looks like forefronting tribal access and sovereignty of that landscape, not only in this first phase of restoration following dam, but in perpetuity.
Thank you, Carly, very much. Appreciate that. Another key theme that was coming forward was additional native plant uses like food sovereignty, cultural uses, which Carly briefly spoke to. Anybody else want to share your thinking?
I'll go ahead and chime in as that was actually my comment. And it's something that I heard from quite a few people that I spoke with and I've interviewed with. And I know that there are a lot of purposes for native plants other than just good old restoration. And I think one of the really cool things about native plants is there's often this nexus where they can serve multiple purposes. Maybe they're a traditional food source or basketry material, or they can help with a sediment erosion control. So yeah, finding those like really, really interesting plants that serve a wide variety of purposes, I think is a great thing for us to focus on.
Nice. Thanks, Alicia. And I might have missed it. Someone else might have been coming forward too on that one. If not, I would love to hear, is anybody willing to speak to, I see this next comment is around young professionals getting prepared to do this kind of work and sort of right livelihood. And I also saw that come up in terms of the next question, which was around additional scoping dimensions. Some folks talked about increasing capacity and expertise. Anybody want to share some thinking about that? Just to give others some context.
Yeah, that was my comment.
Whew.
Because the aspect of the generational focus is the part that was most exciting to me about the way this was offered to us. And so we don't know what the future will hold, but we want the people who are here to have the foundation to move forward. So I want to emphasize that it's not just about getting the plant numbers and the pounds of seed, but it's getting the expertise and the experience into the hands of those who are going to need it.
Thank you, Kira. And thanks for raising up the generational aspects of this work. Appreciate it. Cool. I want to just make space. Is there anything else anybody would love to name about sort of additions? And I'm going to include both the goal and also the scope, the focus and frame. anybody who wants to bring your voice into this large group space, we've got room for you. Cool.
I guess I'm ready to say some. One thing that seems to come to mind is that not only is like the dam removal and the native plant restoration seem like a critical component of this project, but maybe a follow-up or an ongoing like plan with the tribes and all other parties interested for the ongoing care of the land. As we've been hearing, that there's tons of desire for that. And one thing that I see is when we do projects is if it's kind of like a set it and forget it, it doesn't really seem to create like any economic development or long-term like success that is embellishing or like developing our community or our economy over the long haul. So maybe just kind of building that in the behind the scenes might be a critical component to our long-term success.
Beautiful. Thanks, Troy.
No problem.
Cool. All right.
Hi, this is Greg Young from the Powder Valley Tribe. Yeah, and that's a very good point that you just made about sustainability of all this. Do we just restore all this and then let it go, which will work? We're just not in our time frame that we'd like to see it done. But the Powder Valley Tribe, we have close to 1,000 acres right in the area of the dams. One property right on Van Arsdale Reservoir, the lower one, and we also have about 900 acres of Trout Creek just north of the river, just across the county road, actually, Eel River Road. And we've made a major commitment for recreation, to develop recreation in the area. And I personally, I see people from all over the place up north, as far as Eureka probably. And I know that, the Russian River around Santa Rosa is very, very highly recreated. There, just about every turnoff around the Russian River in the summer, you'll see cars parked and people walking down beaches and things like that. And so we foresee in the long term lots of campgrounds in the area along the river, and so we're trying to stay involved with that. And obviously this part is involved in this. So anyway, that's a very good point, is how are we going to manage all this land that the PG&E is going to turn over to other people along the river and things. And it's going to take a lot of efforts beyond just the plant restoration. There's going to have to get Lake County and Mendocino County and probably Mendocino National Forest and a lot of entities together. So it's exciting because even if all that never happened, the plant restoration has to come. That's a very high priority. So it's good to see this group. And I did ask the question, is this confined to just the Potter Valley Project PG&E area, or how far downriver it's going to go? And there's also the Middle Fork, which is actually where Round Valley is. How much, what's the scope of this?
Yeah, so I can address that. We envision this network serving the entire Eel River Basin, so that includes all of the tributaries. But I always say that we're considering it the Eel River Basin with kind of fuzzy boundaries, because we recognize that there are partners who are going to be really critical to making this network a success who are outside of those boundaries, partners in the Mattole or in the Russian River or elsewhere. Like one of our stewardship team members works for the Yurok tribe. So, we're really like focused kind of on the Eel River, but making sure that we're inclusive, so that we are, benefiting from all the partnerships of folks outside of the region.
Thanks, Alicia, for picking up the question. Yeah, and so thank you, Greg, for both the question, but also the comments you made alongside Troy too, around needing to sustain this work over time. Um, we can't set it and forget it, Troy, as you referenced, and also tying into, I believe it was Kira, who talked about the sort of generational nature of this work. So thank you for thinking about, again, this is sort of like, you could think about the goal and the initial focus frame as sort of the intent of the network, where we're headed, what we want to create together. Initial first pass. We wanted to check with you all about like your hopes and needs for this kind of collaboration. Sometimes we think about it as like, what are your conditions for success? So we wanted to support you all to have some conversation and come back to the large group to share those out. Sela is going to set that up. However, I'm sorry, Nicole, I just saw that you had your hand raised. Apologies, I didn't see that sooner. Nicole,
No worries.
the floor is you.
Thank you. Mahim, Sintamana, Kekanama, Nicole Anna, Round Valley, Kiana. So I'm a member of the Round Valley Indian Tribes, also a policy specialist with Save California Salmon. And I'm just curious if in this work, like if there's been identified, we're talking about, we know um, talking about all the different areas and the distinct biodiversity. I love that, we're considering and talking about that because it is very important for us to have viable seed banking for the diversity of the Eel River. And I love hearing, thank you for asking the question and Alicia sharing the question that it will be the entire region. Because as I was writing my questions about, talking about in order to have certain plants viable, native plants viable, they have to be relative to those same areas. And I know that, as our Potter Valley representative spoke, it's, each of those places that he spoke, the plants are completely different in every area. And so I'm glad to hear that we will be working across the entire region, but that just means that, or the entire basin, that just means that we have more work cut out for us to get those viable seeds that will live and, work well in each one of those sections, not only depending on the water types but just the river in itself and what's there. But my question is, do we have anywhere how this is sustainable for fire mitigation, how important our native plant species are in combating, the climate crisis and fire suppression? Well, I don't want to say suppression is an appropriate word, but um, that's one of the huge problems with the reason why we have all of this concerns about fire in our areas because of all of the invasive non-native plant species that are just not able to sustain and wiping out our native plants who can and love fire.
Mhm. Nicole, is it safe to say that in frame, or excuse me, in focus, we should be including also like native plant fire mitigation as an important part of what's in focus for this?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Nicole. And if I could just mention, Heather, another thing that I heard from a number of folks in interviews is this interest for creating educational materials about the value of using native plants. And so I think some of what you shared there is going to be really important to include in that, if that's something that this network decides to prioritize as one of our projects, that we can really explain to people like the many benefits of having native plants on the landscape.
Nice. Thank you. All right. Stella, sorry, I'm going to share my screen and
I can share because I know you'll be doing breakout groups and stuff, so I can share
Okay,
the
sweet.
screen. Yeah, thanks. All right. As Heather mentioned, we do want to understand your hopes and needs for this network. What would make this work most meaningful for you? So we're going to do this in small groups rather than using the polling tool that we have been using so far. We really want you to dig into this conversation with each other and talk to each other about this. And the questions we're going to invite you to respond to in the small groups are: what is your highest hope for our work together? What needs to be true about our work together for it to be meaningful and impactful for you and your work? And Heather's going to drop these prompts into the chat with also their proposal for some light structuring of how to set up the team. And that when you get in the group, you'll agree on who will take some light notes, go around and share your responses to both of the questions, listen for what resonates across your group. And then when you come back, your amazing note takers will drop in the Zoom chat 1 to 2 key themes from your conversations. Do we have any questions before we go out into our groups?
There was a note in the chat about a problem of not being able to see the chat when you're in a breakout group. I just want to check if that is a isolated instance, or is that across everyone? I know I have to like click on it and pull it up again once I get into a breakout group, but I'm wondering if there's a weird Zoom setting currently that makes it so you can't see the chat when you've been out in breakout rooms. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah, it looks like Emily's saying reopening the chat, then you could see it.
Okay. Here's what I can also do. I can also just screen share into your room, so that way you'll see the questions. So we won't, just in case the chat disappears for you.
Thanks, Heather.
Yeah, you bet. Okay. Any other issues or questions before we go? All right. I'm opening them now.
We'll see you back here in about 8 minutes. All right, welcome back. So now is the time for your amazing note takers to please drop 1 to 2 themes from your conversations into the chat. What stood out to you about hopes? What stood out to you about needs? And we're just going to take a couple minutes to fill up the chat. And then we'll take a look at what you've shared. We still have things coming into the chat. Just give another minute. If you've already contributed, you can start to take a look at what others are adding. So I'm starting to notice some patterns here. One that's I'm seeing is around capacity and sustaining local work and economy considerations. It's more around ensuring that there is knowledge about how to do this work and capacity building for local people, youth, to continue this work forward. There's quite a lot here. So I do welcome, Heather, if you're picking up patterns as well, to jump in. I'm still reading.
Yeah, I would note our interest in this, asking you these questions, was hopefully to support some generative conversation, which it sure looks like there was, and also to invite these themes. So that way, when we start to work on designing the June session, we understand what your conditions of success are. And as we start to collectively develop the network, we understand. So more than anything, thank you for the contributions. We're going to bring this back to you in a synthesized form, so you get to a sense of the whole when we see one another in June. Is that okay for now? Anybody in the here want to give voice to anything you're seeing or you contributed in the chat? I like to give long pauses.
Mhm.
Just to give people a chance to find your unmute button. So it takes a second.
So I think it's really important to create a metric to track the impact of the project. I think we're talking a lot about the human benefits and the human goals, and that's great. Like, yay, humans, whatever. Anyway, I'd like to see that the biodiversity of the intention of the biodiversity of this replanting effort creates the longevity and beneficial impact for migratory and native species that are on the threatened and endangered list for their habitat of origin, since that is being used as a leverage of opening and removing the dam. We're talking about the salmonids, right? There are so many other species in the area of the Eel River that are suffering from habitat loss, that if we look to them as the guiding impacts of what it is that is a successful aspect of the project, we will be able to create a really sustainable project. I also think it's really important we take in evapotranspiration in the consideration of the replanting efforts to understand the need and use of nursery plants to create a sustainable habitat with an understanding of the needs of the species that are already there that have to eat and be in that habitat, right? Where, at what point are we replanting for humans? At what point are we replanting for restoration? I made the comment in your original questions about putting in incentives and creating elements that would attract outside conservationists to the area to garner support and protective measures. I'm from the Bay Area originally. I understand the impact of the larger city-based conservation systems to support the efforts of the rural communities. We cannot stand alone. We need to diversify the network. We need to be able to popularize the outputs of the effort. And by creating a foundational metric that is relatable into the greater scientific community, and that effort being documented, like showing, hey, we have planted, let's use monarchs, right? Who doesn't love a butterfly? I mean, come on, how threatening are they, right? But if you put in their habitat, you put in what they want, you have a nature walk around it, you look at what you're doing, you're able to showcase that while also feeding all of the other species that share the habitat. I think it's going to be really a key element. So yes, humans are great, whatever, but let's look at the wildlife and let's look at the metrics we're creating, and then let's use that as a basis that we can use and cite and source for grant applications, for other funding diversities, and for project success that is on the same level as any of the other universities or projects that people like to look at. I think that's really important. So wildlife tracking and understanding that in doing this, we're supporting who's there, but we're creating a basis for who needs to be supported because their habitat has been so threatened and compromised. Sorry to be so long-winded. I got a problem with that.
And you're, just in case you couldn't see what was happening while you were talking, though, there was like all these hands clapping and like hearts flying. So it seems like you're in company with people who share the interest. And I did my best to track a little bit in note form in the chat what you were saying. Please correct the record if I missed it. That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Samira.
All right. I think we need to get this over to John. So I did want to just shape up what's coming next. Stella, did you have anything else you want to jump in there about? Okay,
Nope,
cool. So we've covered a little bit about like the background, how we've arrived here. I'm doing this a bit for the folks who just arrived in the room. We covered on this call like how we arrived to this moment, what's currently shaping up in terms of like the goal and potential focus of your work. We just asked you about like what are the success factors. Usually at this time, people are like, okay, cool. Now what? What's going to happen next? So here's what's coming next. We are here in this orientation session. Friends of the Eel River has already talked one-on-one with many of the folks in the room and some that are not, but they intend to have additional conversations to start to piece together what they're hearing in terms of a sort of a landscape map, understanding some motivations, interests, goals that you all have as individuals that need to be accounted for collectively within the network. At the same time, John's going to share a bunch more detail about this in just a moment, but he's going to be doing some work and we'll be asking you to participate in a survey to understand your current production capacity. You're going to receive an invitation to an in-person meeting. The first one is scheduled for June 18th. The first one we're proposing to have in Fortuna. And the focus of that, our time together, is to really dive in and build a shared picture and understanding of what's the need currently. We'll do a report out call, a virtual, very brief report out session following that in-person meeting for folks who just like want to stay in the loop, but maybe not deeply involved in the co-creative work of the network, or who might have just not been able to attend that in-person meeting. It'll be a chance to share back what's been accomplished. Over summer, John's going to be working with the survey data to develop a capacity evaluation that connects sort of like what we understand about plant material needs with our regional capacity estimates, and then surface like what might that imply about like production pathways. And then we're looking ahead to September and having another network in-person meeting, this time in Ukiah. And that's the place where we're going to be asking you to do some additional co-creative kind of work, where we're going to match up, like based on the understanding of regional capacity, we're going to ask you to co-create your priority production pathways. And then we'll do another virtual report out for anybody that might have missed that meeting. And obviously that's just the beginning of the work. Then we get into like implementation. And so that is obviously the intention behind this sort of runway to set things up. So I'm going to turn it over to John to share a little bit more detail. John, do you want me to run the slide deck for you? Is that helpful?
Yeah, that would be great. I appreciate that. And I want to acknowledge and thank everybody who's here today, building this community together. I just really appreciate your time. I'm interested in everybody's input, not just the producers. And so I'm trying to get an understanding of what our annual plant material needs are, generally speaking, within the watershed. I'm also interested in crudely estimating the amount of plant material we might need for recovery after decommissioning. I'm interested in this for seed, for plants that may be grown in nurseries or for plants that may be grown in the field. And I want to hear from you about your organization and the types of facilities you might use and what your annual production is like, or conversely, if you're a practitioner, what your current utilization for materials is like, and how much material you might use in a given year. Now, I know these are kind of tough questions to drill into at exact numbers, so I've tried to keep the survey really broad. And really what I'm trying to do here is understand how our watershed production could meet or does meet current utilization of plant materials in the watershed. Now, this may not be a perfect type of analysis, but I'm coattailing on another type of analysis that was done by the National Academy of Sciences, where they were looking at capacity estimates for the national use. And really, I'm interested in our community and how we might be able to develop or use the current capacity to meet the plant material needs for our own restoration projects or a project like decommissioning. And then finally, what I'm hoping to understand a little bit more is where there's opportunities within our watershed to be able to expand capacity if that exists, and what are the potential limitations we might have to expanding capacity. Can we go to the next slide? So, I'm just kind of a nerdy guy and I'm not very socially adept, but this is going to probably talk to more of the technically engineering oriented people, but I think about production as a pathway. And each type of plant material, whether it's a seed or a container plant or something that's grown in the field, has a certain amount of steps that have to be gone through in order to be able to get to the end thing that we use in restoration or that we use in our homes or that kind of thing. So what I'm trying to do here is develop production pathways so that I can ask specific questions in a survey about what might be limiting within any one of these steps. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. How I'm going to do this is basically from the production standpoint, just look at the amount of production that producers can, or growers, I recognize that the terminology isn't perfect here, but that what do we actually produce in terms of seed and nursery stock? And I'm going to leave this general. I'm not going to really dig into species. I'm not going to dig into what size material do you grow, but just kind of get an idea of what is our watershed or in some cases regional production, depending on how far out the survey travels. Can we go to the next slide? So one of the things that you all are probably interested in is how am I going to work through the numbers for decommissioning? This is going to be a very simple exercise. We're going to assume that I'm going to assume that the recovery strategy is going to follow similar recovery strategies like was done on the Elwha or the Klamath, and that will revegetate with dominant species and will seed with codominant or commonly associated species, dominant species being primarily woody, and that will focus on recovering woody vegetation on the valley slopes and floor while allowing the active channel areas to passively recover. And so it's just basically an area estimate with, let's go to the next slide, making some assumptions about how that recovery might take place. So in order to develop some estimates of plant materials, I'm going to assume that there is one planting density everywhere and that we'll do planting everywhere except the valley floor and the active channel area, but we'll seed everywhere. I'm going to estimate using one type of plant material, so it's not going to be a very detailed, lots of different materials being put out there. And really what I'm going to do is develop a range of estimates by varying density or spacing between plants and varying seeding rates depending on the type of seeding that's being done, helicopter, hand seeding, that sort of thing. I want to be really clear that I am not developing the recovery strategy for decommissioning. That will actually be done by PG&E through their FERC management plans, and I am not working on that directly. So this is just a way of estimating what a big project's plant needs would look like as one bookend to what our community might supply plants to. Next slide. So I came up with a survey. This wasn't necessarily the way I had originally envisioned approaching this, but this turned out through a lot of discussion to be the best way to reach out to a wide group of you. I appreciate everybody's patience with this. I'm not perfect in terms of how surveys work, so we're kind of working through we're vetting it right now. But basically, I want to know about plant material need, what our growers can produce, where are areas where we have high plant material needs, because I don't think it's probably equal throughout the watershed. And then where are our big production centers? Where are the folks that are growing plants located? And so the survey then is to help develop a better understanding of how plant materials are utilized, the types of facilities that are used to produce the materials, what kind of bottlenecks are we facing as a group, and then whether or not we can actually have the opportunity to grow our production capacity regionally or within the watershed. Next slide. The goal here is basically to use the results of the survey to get an evaluation of what our future needs might look like and how we might be able to develop our community into meeting those needs. Now, decommissioning is only going to come once, but the restoration community has a year-to-year need that ebbs and flows depending on how projects come online. And it's one of those things where trying to understand where the two may meet and how our local growers are currently meeting that demand would be really a helpful thing for us to understand in terms of knowing how, helping the group create the next steps of where do we develop this type of capacity, who are the needs, and how do we work together to basically make this come together as a group. So it's not perfect, and I really would appreciate input on all of this. And thanks so much for listening about the assessment.
Thank you, John. And I want to note one of the also maybe unusual requests that John gave us permission to ask you. I know we really will close out in 2 minutes. Is to see if anybody wants to be an early tester and validator of that survey. We're going to ask everybody to take the survey, but if you're one of those people who loves to sort of like test surveys, there's some room for like 1 or 2 or 3 people. Please sign up.
I'll do it.
Love it. Okay, cool. Sweet. I see you, Christina. So in Meeting Pulse, there's a question about that. I'm going to skip this and pass it over to Sela to close us out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for your time. It's been really wonderful being here with you. What happens next with everything you shared today? It really feeds into what we're going to be bringing back to you in June. So your goal and scope feedback, you will see that represented in the June convening. After today's call, we're going to share the session recording and slide deck. Your hopes and needs are shaping how we design the in-person sessions to be most meaningful for you. And I'm going to drop in the chat our registration for the June session, and we will also send that around in a follow-up communication. But if you want to secure your spot now, that would be great. We are asking for RSVPs so we can set up well, understanding how many people will actually be in the room. And you're going to receive a request to complete this digital survey that John was just talking about, and potentially requests for some one-to-one conversations. All right, Alicia, bring us home.
I just want to say thank you all so much for being here. This is an incredible group of people, and we are really going to do some amazing work together. I love the collaborative spirit that you've all come here with. And I'm already learning so much from all of you. As we mentioned, we've been doing one-on-one interviews. We've touched base with a lot of you, but a lot of you we haven't as well. We are going to continue reaching out to people probably through like the end of April. But if you are really keen to interview with us and give us some more detailed feedback, I've put my email in the chat. You can reach out to me at any time. And yeah, thanks again for being here. And I appreciate all of your time.
We welcome you to come off of mute and say goodbye to one another and be rowdy. It's all good.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Christina.
Hi. Bye.
Bye.